the overlooked and underappreciated, that's exactly what we're going to be talking about in today's video. Stick around.
My name is Nick Pulaski. Growing up, I have always had a passion for wildlife, and with that passion, along with my passion of filmmaking, I get taken on some amazing adventures creating wildlife content, getting up close with a variety of incredible animals. So come follow along as I pursue my goals of educating, inspiring, exploring, and conserving wildlife, all while having fun, seeing the beauty in our natural world.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Thank you so much for joining me here today. I am with one of my beautiful super pastel ball pythons, and this actually was one of the first of the trio that I personally picked up when I first started getting into breeding, and I wanted to pick up some females, so I picked up this beautiful girl right here, and she is gorgeous. And a lot of people nowadays do not like pastel in anything. When people hear pastel in certain combinations or just by itself, people typically will get turned off by them, unfortunately, which is a shame, because look at this girl right here. She is probably, I would say, she's going on like 12 years old right now, and look how stunning she is right now. Mind you, she is a super form, but I mean, I have pastels that still look this vibrant as well too, in beautiful combinations as well. And in the early stages of ball python breeding, pastel was all the rave. It is something that you always wanted to have in all your projects, and nowadays, if you see anything with pastel in it, typically a lot of people get turned off by it. But thankfully, I'm kind of seeing a new leaf getting turned by that, where some people are actually trying to incorporate pastel and really bring out its true beauty, and I agree with them. I would definitely be in that camp. And I want to express too that pastel, like any morph, is something that you want to put in smart with any of your combinations to really bring out the best in it and justify it, that's for sure. And I definitely agree that it is something that should be utilized more, for sure. And I hope to see it more in the future as well. But obviously, ball pythons as a whole are something that is very, very popular in the pet trade, and a very popular pet reptile for sure. And they are not overlooked or underappreciated whatsoever. I was just giving the example right off the bat about how morphs as well can also be something that can be underappreciated and overlooked as well too. But kind of going back to the broad scope of things, I also want to hear from you guys what you personally have seen that was super popular back then and is no longer something that you can typically find now. And one of the things that I would say right off the bat is a lot of different kind of colubrid species, like a lot of rat snakes especially, is something that is starting to kind of climb back a little bit, but was plentiful like even 10 years ago. Like a lot of people were working with them, started working with the ball pythons or the crested geckos, this, that, or the other, just to kind of switch things up a little bit and follow the trends, which is unfortunate because a lot of these amazing underrated species kind of go to the wayside. I used to see mandarin rat snakes all the time, and now very few people actually work with those guys now, and it's just crazy to me. I mean, these are definitely species that we don't want to overlook and let go to the wayside, because someone's got to be working with these things, making sure that we have captive species that are still constantly being bred and constantly being worked with, just to keep that appreciation going and making sure that these species are worked with for years to come. And the same could be said for another species, say for example the rosy boa. I used to own a rosy boa that was a senior when I was back in working at a pet store. Someone brought in this beautiful rosy boa that she just couldn't take care of anymore because her lifestyle was changing, and I said I was willing to take it, and for the rest of that rosy boa's life I had the honor of working with that thing, and it was so cool for sure. And it was one of the first rosy boas that I personally saw, and was definitely something that I was so bummed that people weren't really necessarily working with too much. I was seeing them a little bit here and there, but still now not seeing too many of them, and it's kind of a bummer to not see too many rosy boas being worked with. I'm starting to see a little bit more traction and appreciation for them, but another species that definitely you don't want to go to the wayside for sure. Again, I want to hear your comments down below. What reptile species you personally have seen in the past in bounties and plentiful just typically don't see as much anymore? Let me know in the comments down below about that. And it begs the question too, like, these are the trends right now, and I hate to call things trends, but I mean it really is a trend to things. Like a lot of people love ball pythons, a lot of people love crested geckos, a lot of people are getting into lychee geckos, but what is going to be the next hot trend? You know, I know gargoyle geckos were going to be a big thing and kind of grew up and blew up, but you know, they kind of tapered off, and crested geckos still kind of remained on top of them. But some people thought that gargoyles were going to take over the crested gecko craze, even though they they are very similar, a lot of people thought that gargoyles were going to top crested geckos, and I just haven't seen that personally. And that's been within the past 7 to 8 years. I know blue-tongued skinks were supposed to be something that was even going to topple over ball pythons, was the potential to topple over them, and that just didn't happen. And it's not necessarily a competition or anything like that, but like people are always looking for the next best thing. They were thinking that these species were going to be it, and they are still really popular pets and whatnot, but sometimes these trends kind of taper off and then no one's working with these things whatsoever, and that's when it gets to be a problem with some underutilized species for sure. And there is a ton, and I mean a ton, of different reptile species out there that are just overlooked. I mean, it's just one of those things that I'm trying to go for with this message of this video, is look at the reptile shows in your area and see some of the booths out there that aren't these common species that you normally see. Take the time, get to know some of these breeders that are working with these more rarer species, and definitely get an appreciation for them. I'm not saying impulsively buy these species off of them. Obviously, if you've never seen it before, you want to do your research regardless, but the first step is always getting and finding a reputable breeder that is working with something like this, and you might find some really unique species that you would enjoy working with down the line for sure. That's how I've gotten into certain things. Say for example the Stimson's pythons I never utilized or saw before. Same with Woma pythons in a sense. Woma pythons are not as common as people would think. Same with like Johnny, my red-tailed green rat snake. I definitely found some really cool people along with some really cool animals that I enjoy working with day in and day out. And that could happen to you as well too. If you're someone that just wants to stay in line with one species or two species that you personally know, there's nothing wrong with that. But at least getting to know and appreciate those kind of species is important for sure. But in general, it's just important that some people are working with these species, and I just want to give out the appreciation for those that do work with these overlooked species, just because it is so vital to have these kind of people working with these species that just kind of get overlooked or just aren't known about as well, to gain that appreciation from these more rare species. Because without people like you, that is how these species kind of just dissipate in terms of captive bred animals, and that can actually lead to issues with the animals out in the wild as well too. So it's definitely one of those things that we definitely want to keep that appreciation, and if possible too, if some people kind of pick up on some certain species and stuff like that and kind of find their niche in these more rare and unique species, that's a great thing to kind of build those generations to come for those specific species and make sure that they're here for years to come for sure. It's so cool to go to both national and local expos and see what people are working with. I was just at a local expo by me over this past weekend, and I saw some really cool stuff that I wouldn't have necessarily seen anywhere else, and getting to know some of these people that are working with these cool species is definitely something really cool for sure. So again, it's all about building on in the community, making some new friends, making some new connections, and getting to know about some really cool animals and reptiles that are out there. That's also a really special thing for sure. And who knows, maybe down the line that's something that you might be interested in working with yourself. I know it's worked for me, and I just want to share that idea and those ideals with everyone else as well too. And if anything, just learning about a new species is definitely something I highly recommend you guys do for sure. Because at the end of the day, that's how this reptile industry grows, and how that appreciation grows for all the reptiles within the reptile industry as well too. So don't overlook things, always ask questions, always check things out. Don't impulsively buy things that you just see, but make sure you are asking the proper questions. It's important to do your research for sure, so never just impulsively buy an animal if you don't know what you're getting into necessarily, because that's what's first and foremost, is the animal's care and well-being, and you want to make sure you're setting yourself up for success for sure. But again, it's all about appreciation for these super rare reptiles that you don't normally see much anymore. It's kind of weird too, because I would say also as well, from going to the national shows like back in the day to now, and even some local shows, like everyone, for example, was either doing ball pythons or leopard geckos, and I would see very little amount of crested geckos. And it's very interesting to see in a gecko standpoint how leopard geckos kind of took a teeter down and crested geckos kind of started skyrocketing. It's very interesting to me. For whatever the reason that may be, that's not my place to discuss that, but more so, it's just very interesting to see how certain trends have gone up and certain things you just don't see as much of that are still pretty common in the pet industry as well too. It's all just very interesting and cool stuff. But again, it's definitely stuff that we don't want to let go to the wayside and fall through the cracks, because if it's gone completely, then it's gone forever. So it's always still important that someone somewhere is still building on these colonies of of certain species to make sure we have captive populations here to make sure that we have generations to come for those animals for sure. Kind of an interesting video, kind of a fun video. Just wanted to share my appreciation and shout everyone out. If you are working with a rare and unique species as well, definitely leave that in the comments as well too. Something cool for me to kind of look into and research, but other people I'm sure are interested as well too. So definitely leave those animals and reptiles in the comments below. We all want to hear the cool species that you're working with. As always, guys, I appreciate you guys joining me here today. If you guys could do me a few favors, if you could like the video, subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate it, as well as hit that notification bell so you know when I upload. Definitely check us out on our social media as well too. I've been posting all the fun stuff there as well too, so definitely check us out on Instagram and TikTok. Definitely really fun stuff there for sure. As always, guys, I appreciate your ongoing support. Thanks for tuning in today, and until next time, we will see you guys soon. Take care.